Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Dhanashree. I am the president of Mass Wellness Initiative. We are a Massachusetts-based 501c3 nonprofit organization. And before we start, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do and how it started. So our mission is to democratize wellness. I'm going to let a second to sink in. Why do we need to democratize wellness? See, wellness in general, it's considered kind of a level up from the food we eat or the destinations we go to or something. It's kind of a luxury, but in its own right, it's supposed to be available to everyone. And it could be because really you don't need much to be well inside. And so all these techniques and all these people that are doing it, just giving them a platform and sort of supporting and nurturing, taking it where it's not, like policymakers don't know about it, people who are investing don't know about it. And so how do we connect all those people? That was sort of the thought process behind why we started Mass Wellness Initiative. And we have three big projects. One is High Five, which stands for High Impact 5 Techniques for Instant Stress Relief. It's designed for first responders, and we launched it 4 years ago. We literally went to all of 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts, and we gave the program to first responders. And then the pandemic hit. Literally thousands of people are using it today, and you can imagine the level of stress that first responders have. I mean, if we think we are stressed, just multiply it by 100, right? And so during the pandemic, we launched it nationwide, and we're really proud of that program. Through that, we also connected with some of the government agencies. Our work has been recognized by the Massachusetts government multiple times. And then we realized that the people who are actually offering and serving the society with all these wellness businesses and stuff, they need a lot of support because, see, when you read articles about where is wellness industry or what is it doing, you're going to see things like in 2025, the wellness industry is supposed to hit $7 trillion around the world. Today it's 4.3 trillion. That's like combined GDP of Canada and England. So where is this money? Because when you go to your yoga studio in your neighborhood, they're still struggling for marketing. They don't know where to get people from. And when they want to get business insurance or whatever, they're not even considered a category. And so filling this gap was very important, and that's how the Wellness Business Network, our second project, started. It started as really a project, but today we're really proud of it. It's become like a platform that brings people together. We have given grants. We have connected people who need help with mentors. We have helped people get leases, connect them with resources that the government has to offer. So it's really, it's still growing. It's a very new organization, but it's answering a lot of questions that are out there in the industry. And so this monthly seminar that we do is a part of our way of connecting with everybody that's around there, because it's live streamed on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Facebook. And we want to keep answering questions that are out there that people really have. And how do you scale up your business was one of the top questions. And that's why the title today is Scaling Up Your Wellness Business. Yeah. I'm going to talk about the third project that we have after our presentations, because it's also very well connected to the next month's event. All right, so with that, I'm going to briefly introduce our three panelists, and then I'm going to let them introduce themselves, because all three of them have really amazing profiles. So I'm going to start with Krista. Just so that you know, Krista has been in meetings literally since morning, every day. She has been supporting business groups from Spain, from all over Europe, opening up new markets for them. She has worked with the Commonwealth Business International Trade Department. She has been a banker. So everything you want to know about how to literally scale up, she has done it. And so I'm really grateful that she's here today and she's going to share her wisdom with us. Then we have Jeff Bourbon. Jeff knows people. And why do we need people? People are our customers. People are the people who help us run our business. And so knowing Jeff is a really great idea. And so he has been in advertising, marketing, and business strategy business for over 30 years. He has worked with many big brands, making them big since they were nothing to what you see today. And he's going to do a lot of that workshop style talk today with all of us. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then we have Nirmal. Have you ever heard of a company that makes 400% profits or grows 400%? That would be him. He is the product head of a company called Alias Wire. All these things that you see with Zelle or Venmo, where you actually do financing without the bank, that's sort of what their company does. And they also have made many records about how you run your business, or you're running it for say 10 years and then you want to redefine it, or start with a new product or something, sort of like creative ways of scaling up. And so he's going to talk about that with us. And so with that, we'll start our presentations. Welcome everyone who's watching us online. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I see that you've already started putting in the comments, so continue doing that and we'll make sure to get to them as soon as we can. So we're gonna begin with Jeff. That's okay.
Can we do something with it? Yeah.
I'm going to, yeah.
And also, I'd love to hear who is in the room. I mean, I don't know. I know the people online as well, but
Sure,
I
yeah.
think a small enough group to perhaps go around and know who
We
is
could
here.
do that. Shall we do it? Introduce everyone. Okay, in like few lines.
They're all looking at me, so I guess I'm starting.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Leanne Schaffner. I live in Andover, Mass. I am a holistic health coach. I'm starting my own practice within a naturopathic medicine office, and I also am a CEO of a small female-owned business called Project We Society, where I organize wellness-based events for women. So, thank you.
I'm Heather. I work in the CIC, and I'm basically one of the people online watching, but in real life. And I'm in a front row kind of seat to everything involving wellness initiative. And I'm not even in the wellness industry, and I find these talks fascinating.
Hi, I'm Candice Land Trasinka. I started Travel Impactful. It's a very new travel company that I started a few months ago. Basically, the concept is to bring people to Puerto Rico, learn about the wellness aspect of Puerto Rico. At the same time, we want to learn about how to benefit the local economy in a travel in a sustainable, eco-friendly way. And also we work with local charity and see how we can make a difference when we're traveling. And it's a different business model than Habitat for Humanity. This is all about community building and how we could contribute using our own skill sets and talents like yours, and not using hard labor. So that's my business model. Thank you.
I'm Brittany. I have a psychotherapy practice in Boston and been open for 7 years now. So I was just curious to hear more about what people are doing in the wellness space. It's something I care a lot about, and that's it.
Hello everybody, I'm Sarah Bai. I'm currently a graduate student at Harvard. I live in Cambridge, Massachusetts here. Interested in starting a hospitality and wellness startup. I'm very excited to learn more today. Thank you.
And my name is Cynthia. I'm the new program experience coordinator with Venture Cafe based in CIC. And I'm here because wellness is something that I really care about, not just for myself, but also for everyone who comes into Venture Cafe, whether they are a startup, a president, a student. Wellness is something that everyone should prioritize. And so I'm not only here to meet all of y'all, I definitely want to hear more about your businesses, but I'm also interested in strategies that we can use to, I guess, reinforce the idea that everyone should care about wellness, even if they don't think that it fits within their own sector.
And I'm Elizabeth Miner. I'm an international business coach, and I help entrepreneurs get to launch. So a lot of my entrepreneurs are in the wellness field. So this is always an important topic for me.
Welcome everyone, and might I add, it's all women audience. How about that? Cheer for you. Very cool. It's a great mix of people I see here, and I'm really looking forward to what you all think afterwards, and if you have any special feedback for us as well. So, all right.
Should we begin?
Krista.
You want, introduce ourselves? You said you.
Yeah, Jeff. Yeah,
Okay.
we can.
Okay. Do you mind if I stand up? I don't like.
You totally can. Yeah. Maybe we can move.
I was
the
just
chairs.
gonna say, can we have the chairs?
Okay, so my name's Jeff. I run a company called Berman Creative. We've been doing this for about 20 years now. Got more than 60 startups off the ground. These are some of the ones in the wellness space. We've done a whole bunch of different things. All these companies were nothing when we got busy. And now some of them are big companies, large organizations. The biggest thing that we face, anybody who starts any organization, the challenge everybody faces, and this is consistent across the board no matter what space you're in, everybody thinks when you go to market, you create a product and now I'm going to bring it to market and I have these people who are waiting to hear from me. And I'm going to put it out there and they're just ready and waiting. And we think about our audience like this, but in fact, that's not our audience. Our audience is a disinterested crowd of passers-by. And the first and most difficult job of any startup is you have to get their attention. And getting people to stop and pause and take in your message is one of the hardest things we ever have to do. The current estimates are right now, 50,000 messages per day are aimed at each of us. Can I ask, just out of curiosity, does anybody remember one message from today? One new message, anybody? What was it?
Someone told me they got COVID.
Okay, but that's not a marketing,
What's a,
something.
okay, so a marketing
Some,
message?
right.
I don't know.
Did you know?
thought it was more like a work message.
Okay, so I don't mean, yes, we all care about what our friends and family and coworkers and colleagues have to say. But when it comes to somebody who's offering us something, they want to sell us something, they want to do something for us, they have a service, we're all walking around with blinders on all the time because it's too much. We can't take it in. So the first challenge and the most difficult challenge is you have to get these people to stop, to pause long enough to hear what you have to say. It's really hard to do that. So the first step in scaling is you got to figure out how do you get people's attention. And if you understand nobody cares, then you're on your way to doing that. Second point, early success is often for entrepreneurs fool's gold here. And you have to be careful. I've seen a lot of companies, and a lot of times this is when I and my people would get involved. People see some early success. They get some early traction. Some people are buying their thing, and they get excited. And they take in money. They take in investors, and investors say, I see what you've been doing. We're just going to scale that up. We're going to take what you've been doing and bring it up here. And they fail at that point. And this happens over and over and over. The reason why, there's wonderful work by a guy named Jeffrey Moore. I don't know if you all have heard of a book called Crossing the Chasm. This is a foundational book for every startup. I recommend everybody read this thing. The basic idea is that the market for any new product, and especially an innovative solution, is not a unified homogeneous market. The market is actually discrete groups of people, and you have to think about them differently because they make decisions in different ways. Early on, the neophiles, the people you get in the very beginning, are all the people who are out there trying every new thing, right? They're the ones who were first into crypto. They're the first ones who were getting into the metaverse, right? They're the first ones, and in different areas, there are different people play different roles. I have a friend who buys every new photography gadget. It doesn't matter what it is. He buys whatever it is. He's got a lot of money. For him, whether that gadget works or not is less interesting than just what is this thing? And the more interesting and innovative it is, the more he wants to find out about it. And he's the guy that we would go to and say, so I just want a basic camera to shoot underwater because I like scuba diving. I'm going to be underwater. What would you use? And he knows everything because he's tried everything. We all know people like this, right? That's your first customer. In any business, the first people are the ones who want to try any new thing. The problem is they try your thing and you get a little excited. You're making a sale. Next month, they're off onto something else. No matter how great the experience was with your thing, they're going to get onto something else because that's what they do. They love the new. So your thing might be terrific, but you're like an ex-girlfriend all of a sudden. You know, they're done with you. They're on to the next thing. They are not a sustainable business. The next market, the early adopters, are the ones you want to focus on next. They're the ones who have a real problem, and they are smart enough and imaginative enough to picture what a solution might look like. They have a picture in their head of not only what the problem is, but how they might solve it. What would a potential thing look like, even if it doesn't exist yet? They're putting this notion in their head of what is it. So you can sell to them, you can put something in front of them by describing how it works. You can talk about how your thing works, and because they have an imagination and they've pictured it, if the picture in their head matches the thing you offer, they might be interested, and that's a positive way to go to market. The problem is these two groups together, the neophiles and the early adopters, are at most 15% of your total market opportunity. So only 1 out of 7 of everybody you can sell to, of everybody you might be able to put your thing in front of, only 1 out of 7 are in those two groups. The rest of the market, 6 out of 7 people who might be interested in your thing can't hear a how it works message. They're so caught up in their problem, they can't imagine the solution. And so a how it works message that works early on does not work after that. To the people, the early majority, this is now about 1/3 of the total market, 34% more or less. It's a much larger group than the earlier groups. They don't have the picture in their head for it. So what do? You have to start thinking about, why do people care about this thing? And how can I put a message to them that's not about what I do, how the product works, but what they care about? A lot of times startups, you have an idea and you're doing a thing for a reason. You know why you're doing it, you're clear about that. And people will say sometimes, and so I've been an angel investor for many years. They think, what we're going to do is we're going to cast a wide net. We're going to put a message across everybody, and we only need to get 1/2 and then we're going to be great. We're going to be solid. And they think it looks like this. We're just going to get some fraction of everybody, and then we're going to be great. And it never, ever works. That's not how growth happens. You have to start with the people who are aligned with your values, the people who are close to you, the people who are doing it for the same reasons that you're there. The reason why is the foundation of why your business grows. You grow from the center out. And I think anybody who's built a successful business will tell you this. You find the people who are enthusiasts, the people who are there for the same reasons you did it, the people who have the same sort of burr under their saddle. There's a reason why. And you build out from there. Okay. I'm jumping around here because we want to do this quick, okay? Do y'all know a book called Thinking Fast and Slow? Okay. So this book won a Nobel Prize. Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky were the researchers who did this, who basically explained the way attention works, the way we take in information. Basically, the fundamental idea here, and I'm not going to go into it too deeply now, the notion that we're going to look at something and evaluate it and decide whether it's worth us doing or not doing is not the way it works. As we found before, 50,000 messages a day pointed at each of us, and we can't remember a single one. You have to get their attention first. The attention comes before the decision making. And that is such a counterintuitive argument. You have to make them want it before they know why they want it. You can't explain to people why they should want it, because you can't get their attention long enough to hear that. The interest has to precede the desire. The interest has to precede anything they know about it, okay? It's hard to understand. You have to make them want it before they know why. Okay? Okay. Last point I'm going to make, and then I'm going to sit down. A lot of us like to market to companies, and we say we're going to sell to hospitals, or we're going to sell to Fortune 50 companies, or we're going to sell to the biggest banks. Pick any organization. That doesn't work. Companies never make decisions. What you have to do, you can't appeal to Bank of America, right? You have to find somebody inside that bank who has a specific need. And the wellness companies I've worked with, so one of them was the company that helped make telemedicine and remote diagnoses a thing. Telemedicine was not a thing for a long time. They were founded in 1999, right after this became possible. And for 15 years, they floundered in the US market. They couldn't get anybody to do their thing. They were about to pull out of the US. They're actually based in Spain. It's going to be called Advanced Medical. They had this idea that you don't, for people who aren't living in Boston or Cambridge and we don't have the best doctors right nearby, what do? Or if you have an unusual disease, cancer is actually 10,000 different diseases. How do I know the guy I'm talking to now, the doctor in front of me, knows anything about my specific condition? What Advanced Medical did was they used the advances in what's possible with technology and the way we're able to move medical information around electronically to connect the very best doctor in any condition with whatever was happening with that particular patient at that time. They were kind of a matchmaking service for it, using electronic communications. That wasn't possible before. And really, it's an ideal situation for both the patient and the doctor, because the patient's getting the very best care, and the doctor is with the patient they're meant to serve. It was a beautiful thing, and nobody was buying it. And they were trying to get this into big companies, going to HR departments and big companies saying, you all should use this for your people, and nobody cared. Nobody cared, because they were talking about how it works. It's only when they made the connection to the people, to the humans inside, to the fact that the people they were sitting across from, the people in HR, they themselves, and people they loved and cared about, were going to have a medical crisis at some point. We all do. There's only one way out of this place. And there's going to be some medical event on the way. When that happens, you want the very best care possible. And it was by making that connection, the human connection to these people, that they were able to get through, and they basically made telemedicine happen in the US. It all began by understanding you don't sell to a company. You have to solve the problem of somebody specific inside that organization. And that's how that works. Okay. That's everything, because I don't want to go too long.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah, that was great.
thanks. Krista, would you please share your thoughts?
Sure.
Thank you.
I don't
You
need
don't have
anything because
slides.
I didn't read the instructions, so I didn't know that there was supposed to be a slideshow or something like that. So I'm not as prepared as you are, so I don't have a slideshow. But in any case, my name is Krista Langeben. I've been here at CIC for about 12 years. I have a finance background. I'm a banker originally, Bank of America and many others. I've been a foreign exchange trader and then worked with global banks from around the world. And then I, for 4 years, ran the Massachusetts Office of Trade and Investments, which was sort of the international arm for Massachusetts, both under Governor Romney as well as Devon Patrick, which was fascinating because I knew absolutely nothing about, the state government. Didn't know how many senators we had, know how many, congressmen people we had. And I learned very, very fast, but it was absolutely fascinating. And I think what's really important, and I come to this message again later, is that whatever you do, there are always transferable skills. That from any job, whatever you've done in the past, there are certain things that are transferable that you can use in a completely different vertical. I'm sure you all have, worked in different sectors, but there are things that you can take with you and not, start completely from scratch, but say, what can I really do? What's my strength, and how can I apply this to a completely new sector? So fast forward, I know Tim Rowe, who's the founder of CIC, and when I left my position at the state, he had actually, while I was at the state, come to me and said, we are launching this at CIC, this new product called International Flex Space. And that was meant to attract international companies to CIC, companies that were not ready for full commitment, but that would come occasionally and spend, a week or two every so often here. And he knew that in my state role, I was constantly receiving international delegations and was in touch with international people. So he said, why don't you come here and we can somehow work together? And so I established an office. I'm a client, so I'm not working for CSE, but I'm a client. But we've done a lot of projects jointly. So long story short, I basically, for the last 12 years, have focused on working with international, relatively early stage companies, and most of them are research driven. They all are innovative in a certain way, and they all are looking to grow beyond their home market. And many come from smaller countries, like we work with Lithuania, and we work with Finland, and we work with Slovakia. So these are all markets that have like between 2 and 5 million people. And they know from the get-go they have to, think globally and think internationally and think how can they, scale their business at some point. So we actually do a lot of totally hands-on business, working with them. We have a group, as you mentioned, right now from southern Spain, Andalusia here, as well as a group from Chile. And they are rolling up their sleeve, and they're going to be really put, they're going to get the tough questions asked. And the tough questions are really, do I have a product? Do I have a technology that is suitable for which market? How do I position myself? What is my competition? Why would anyone buy it? And my clients are, you sounded like your focus is more B2C, like, all of the people that are listed here. A lot of our companies we work with are way before market entry, but they have to position themselves, and it's B2B, business to business. So their clients at some point could be, and that's also quite important, because there's a consumer, as you said, it has to be a champion in every organization that you want to sell to, someone that says, wow, this is really exciting, I'm going to drive this forward. But in many cases, it's not an individual I'm selling to. It's really, for example, I have a company that's in imaging, and they have a new technology that's fascinating to do imaging faster and better and less expensive and so forth. So the question is, they think I'm going to sell to each individual hospital that's going to do imaging. But when you help them think through, that's not really their client. They could probably sell their imaging devices to another imaging company that already has all these sales channels. So you have to kind of help them think through who is really your client. And very often there are very different models that the best client is sometimes not what they think their client really is. So we work from, just about most countries, not most countries around the world, but many countries in Europe, also some Asian stuff. And it's really, really fascinating. When we work with companies, one of the things we then do is, even years after we have intensely worked with them, we connect many with each other, because we see a lot of what bubbles up in different regions and different countries. Could be, right now we have a company that works on dementia, early detection of dementia. That fits kind of in your space, perhaps. And we connected them with another company in a completely different country that also works on, solving diagnostics for dementia on an early stage. So it's really fun to kind of see how these, companies bubble up, how they make connections. And that's basically what we do. We help them connect, we help them find the right resources, we help them think strategically, and we help them get, through the whole regulatory path, because a lot of them need FDA approval or other regulatory approval. There may be insurance questions. So we help them think through all the resources they need and put it all together. And happy to say there are several clients that scaled greatly that are here in CIC, that are here on different floors, that started as came for the first time with one of our programs. And now 4, 5, 6 years later, they have a dozen people. So it's fun.
Thank you so much, Krista. I'm so inspired. There are just so many ideas that are in my head bubbling up. It's like this godmother fairy, like, what's your idea? Great, thank you. So next we have Nirmal Kumar. If you could please. Do you want me to move a little bit, or are you gonna stay? So it's good? Okay. Yes.
There are too many years on that. It's like a history of my life. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here. And just for full disclosure, I have done payments and nothing to do with wellness. But there's so much changes and pivoting and product relaunch and stuff that we have done that might be relevant, as Jeff was saying. We can always learn from any business and apply to another business, because growth is all about a mindset, and I've seen that firsthand when we didn't have it, and we have it. I think so, and what you learn, over a period of time, not what to do, but what not to do. I think in a lot of jobs you just learn what not to do, and that's what makes you successful in the future. So currently I run a technology and product at AliasWire, which is a fintech company currently based in Burlington. We've been all around Boston, started right at the Faneuil Hall and Cambridge and Watertown and now Burlington. So it's been quite a journey for the last 15 years or so. So we currently offer 2 SaaS platforms, digital bill pay and small business credit. And the reason why I show that is you'll see how when we started, we were nowhere close to what we are doing today. So this is all about pivoting your business and how you can learn from the market, from your customers. When you go out, you learn new things. The great idea you had may not have the kind of reception that you hoped. So as I said, all I've done is payments all my life. So really started 2001. So this whole thing about, hey, give me your account number, give me your check to send you money. So the original idea was, can we send money to a phone or email, and somebody else manages the account numbers, which is good for us because you don't have to give me your account number for me to send money. So that's how the company's name is AliasWire. You wire the money to an alias, hence the AliasWire. So really started, we landed, as they say, as an entrepreneur, you just love something, and then the first opportunity you jump on it without thinking like, okay, there's no plan. I mean, a lot of times there's no plan, at least in my case. So we landed something with Verizon. They want to do something on the phone, like, hey, we want to be more than the phone. So send money, receive money, and those days, those brick phones where you scroll up and down, and then you click, you go to the right, and then do stuff. So we built first few prototypes there, and really landed the first real launch with Washington Mutual. So we enabled first P2P money transfer without any PayPal kind of intermediate account. So you don't have to sign up with anything. You have an account, I have an account, and we can transact. So that got launched. The timing, again, there will be challenges in your journey. So that's 2008. And out of 2 great companies, one did not survive 2008. So Washington Mutual went in receivership, Chase, our product, after 4 years of work, it launched, and whoever launched it didn't exist. So that was the first pivoting moment. And there were so many pieces that came out of that because of the black hole, origination of the products that we have today. First thing we learned, nobody wants to pay for sending money to your friend. So unless you have big backing, venture fund, that idea is not going to earn revenue for a very long time. And classic example, Venmo is still trying to figure out how to make their first few dollars by offering a debit card. So that made it pretty clear that because we didn't have that kind of venture fund, we had to pivot to something that's people use, something that's part of their lives. So bill payment kind of seemed like the idea. Now, we had built a platform that can pretty much support any kind of payments people do. So we made the bill payment work, that worked, and figured out some of the principles what Jeff mentioned, who wants it, who the right people are. Banks don't sell it, it's the people within the banks. They have specific needs. You kind of tailor your product to serve those, and so we grew from there. Another piece from that send money idea was like, if you can send money to someone is receiving. So Pavis is another product that's on the receiving side. So it's the flip side of the same coin. So nothing, the idea here is nothing goes waste. Whatever you build, if you're passionate about the industry or the cause, you will pivot and you'll figure stuff out. So 2018, unfortunately, that one of original founders passed in that year, and there was a big restructuring and happened. So the silver lining of that was we just took a whole bunch of money and applied all these learnings of last 10, 12 years and put it on a focused growth path. We probably already knew what mistakes we could make in the payment industry, so nothing to learn from the market. It was just waiting for the right infusion and right team. And that's where I think we grew the team we were 3 times the size we were in 2018. And that even through COVID, it just grown. So which we are fortunate about. And so the one thing I learned, there are a lot of management books that talk about the 3 Ps. One thing that I have personally learned is the persistence. There will be a lot of challenges. Not every business is a unicorn business. Not everything will work in first shot. If you are really passionate about it, you believe in it, you will pivot a few times, but if you keep at it, eventually things will happen. So persistence is what you will need, whether it's any kind of business. You learn to hear a lot of no's. There are more no's than yes, and you only need a few yes to make it work. So recently I was just reading an article about this company called Ram. So this is a company that just launched a corporate credit card product. And why I brought it up, and because we also have a small business card product. So the interesting thing was the way they approach it. There are already a lot of corporate credit cards, right? You have Amex, you have Discover, and then you have Brex, which is a new startup that raised $300 million. Each one of those corporate card companies do one thing really well, and what the term is a spike. So Amex is really great at rewards. They know how to reward their customers, travel rewards, you talk about it. Discover is very good at underwriting. They know really well how to manage risk. Brex is specifically targeting the startups. So there are a lot of Silicon Valley startups getting funded. Nobody's offering them business credit yet because they don't have any credit history, so they really focus on that. So these guys, they say, well, there's no corporate card exists that works on product and engineering. So we're going to build a corporate card that's going to roll out features and functions and make it really work for the corporates, whether it's called expense management, all the pain points you have. So as Jeff said, you identify the pain points and the interest in your product. So that was their spike. So it's kind of fascinating that once you identify what your spike is, which is how you differentiate, so your competitive landscape, you look around what everybody does really well. There's one thing you gotta do really well, better than everybody else. And that's how you rally around your entire product, entire team, around that spike to scale up. Because then you never lose that argument. Why should I buy it? Or why should I buy your product? Because you know your spike. Every employee of your organization knows the spike. You really can sell. Everybody's a salesman in the company at that point because they really understand what they're trying to do. And that I think is very important. So in the last few years, the one thing we learned is when you decide to scale up, leave the superheroes behind and start to follow the process. And I've been the culprit myself, and my full-time job is to make myself completely redundant. That's my directive from my CEO, from the board. Everybody, we cannot scale if we are dependent on one or two people. So we cannot have single point of failures. And that's, you have to do it. You know, when you start a business, there's no choice. You have to man every station. But there's a key difference between manning a station without a process. So even if you are doing all the jobs, if you have a process of your own, you can easily replace or hire new people to scale up. So that's why I think one of the critical ingredients of scaling up is having a process. So with the right people, process, and product, I think anyone can scale up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There's so much to learn, wasn't it? So key points for me, I think they are sort of the pain points we all go through in the entrepreneurial journey. I run a business myself, and starting with why should people listen to me? Or what is it that I'm really offering? Making it interesting. And that can be a few years journey really in the process of you running a business. Isn't it? Have you experienced that? So I guess that's one of the, big takeaways. And then how Krista said something really that really touched my heart, that you have something that you bring from any business that you do, any job that you do, there are skills that you can build in. And I think these entrepreneurs that come in wellness sector, they particularly, have you heard of a degree in wellness anywhere? They don't come from the wellness college or wellness whatever, they are sort of a product of their own, and they have this big vision. One of my talks I was talking about, everyone has a target customer, but wellness entrepreneurs have humanity as customer, right? And so you can see a lot of points where you feel like you don't have the strengths that you really, really need. But I think if you look at everything you've done in the past, then bring in the transferable skills that Krista was talking about, I think you can win any game of scaling up or running business, I suppose. And thank you, Nirmal, for sharing what could also go wrong if you're not ready, to think of a business as a business, and looking at what is that one thing that you're doing, because there's just so many things you like about your baby, right? So what is that one thing? And just in general, knowing the process. I think that's one of the things that I have learned in business as well, that many times when you don't know the process, you're figuring out the process, and that becomes like the biggest part of your process. But I think we can take help from all these guys, I think, and it'll be wonderful. So with that, I'm going to move to questions that we have for the panelists. We have some questions that we have gathered in advance from the audience, and then we can open it up to the audience, yeah? So scaling up a business. Now, there's so many different things, right? So many different departments. There are people, there's marketing, there is the product manufacturing or whatever. So where do we really start scaling up, or how do we identify what is scale up for your own business? How to make business scale up ready? Anybody who wants to take it?
Well, I can take it since we finished on the
Sure.
on the process part, and I'm a big big process guy, so I'm just gonna keep beating that drum roll. So even as I said, if your business has a workflow like setting up an appointment, receiving someone and executing the task and, handing them off to the next, if you're doing all those, at least define your process and then do it instead of just ad hoc way doing it. Second thing, measure everything. You cannot improve anything that's not measured. So if you're saying you're taking 10 appointments or 10 slots in a day, if you're not measuring, you're just always worried about, you're in wellness business, but you will be mentally so stressed, like, okay, there's so much stuff, but so much, lot, these phrases don't help. Measure everything you do, because then you can get the right help. You can put that metrics in front of the investors saying, hey, only if I had 5 more people, I can do X, Y, Z. So that is very important in scaling up any kind of operation.
Yeah, and if you're in a position to hire people, or you always surround yourself, even if you're a single professional team, you may have advisors. Always hire people that know more than you do, and surround yourself with the best possible people. Okay, I think sometimes it's counterintuitive, especially the companies I deal with in Europe. They always feel I'm the CEO and I'm the most important person, and everyone else is, I don't want to be threatened by someone. Well, that's a kind of a big corporate perhaps attitude, but surround yourself with the best possible people you can do, and hire not only your best friends, but hire people that are honest with you, that are people, advisors that tell you sometimes what you don't want to hear, and that will challenge you, and don't just have people say, oh, you're doing fantastic. That's one of the things I see in a lot of companies in Europe. And I don't know, any Italians here? I don't know, I love Italy, I love the food, I love everything, but the companies are terribly run. They go from ground to ground, and with no benchmarks and no measurements. To your point, you need to measure everything. And when they run out of the money, they go and apply another grant, and some government official doesn't know how to measure it, and here we go. And so they surround themselves with people that say, well, it's fantastic, you're doing fantastic. And then they come here to a real market, and then people say, well, what are you thinking? I mean, how can you do this? They're really, being challenged. So I think the message is surround yourself with the best possible people you can help. And then the other thing is, when you scale, I see so many companies that, they were started like a year or two ago, and then they spend months building financial models, how they're going to look like in 10 years. It's bullshit. I mean, come on. I mean, you have no idea what it's going to look like. You have to be ready to pivot, to your point. I mean, you always be flexible. Don't, over-compromise. Don't overextend yourself. Be ready to pivot and look at CIC. I mean, it's one of the biggest pivot stories that we can have, speaking of health. The CIC is in the business of running basically this infrastructure that we enjoy, to bring people together, to make sure that there's enough coffee in the machine, that there are 120 conference rooms that are served, and that's building this incredible innovation community. Well, I, as a client, I have no long-term contract. I can cancel with 30 days notice. You know who owns this building? MIT. CIC has a 20-year contract, or I don't know exactly, don't hold me to this, if it's 15, 10 years, 20 years, but so there was no flexibility. So you have what's in banking called a gap problem. You have assets and liabilities that are completely disjointed. So at some point, after we realized COVID is not going to go away in 2 weeks, what we were hoping originally, CSE said, we have a problem. And so, now what we know is CSE Health, they started a subsidiary. And CSE is now the biggest tester for all public schools, not only in Massachusetts, but also throughout New England, throughout, I think, in Minnesota, and throughout Washington State. So they are an incredible pivot, because they said, what are we really? And speaking of transferable skills, CSE said, we are a logistics business. We make sure that the conference rooms are clean and all that good stuff. We can apply the same skill set to organize testing. That CSE is not a healthcare provider. They don't know how to test, but they know how to put all the pieces together. So they organize, the people that make the appointments, and the people that, and make it a good experience. And I got vaccinated, ultimately they went to the vaccinations. I got vaccinated at CSC locations. There was zero wait. I mean, in and out, I mean, it's done in 5 minutes, then 15 minutes wait. But they prided themselves to organize it like a machinery and make it a pleasant experience. So I think CSC Health is one of the biggest pivots that I can think of, just in my immediate environment. CSC had 300 people as a CSC before COVID hit. They had 3,000 people at CSC Health. So 10 times as many people that employed in CSC Health.
So that logistics was their spike.
Exactly.
Right.
They identified that.
Exactly.
Anytime they see an opening, apply that, they do that.
Except none of us in this room are the CIC. I mean, it's a wonderful case story.
Yeah.
But for someone who's starting a wellness business, what was the question again, Dhanashree?
How to get your company scale up ready, or how to identify what is your area to scale up?
So the question my question about that, and listening to Nirmal and Krista answer it from the perspective of a larger organization, I'm always looking at somebody who's starting out closer to the ground, closer to their end market, and now they're starting to see some traction. And how to scaling up, to me, is not before you satisfy demand. You got to find, where is that demand? Where is it coming from? How do I generate more interest in my thing? And that's the fundamental message. I mean, the logistics and the process and figuring out how do we deal with a thing that's in motion now is a great problem to have. You got to get the thing into motion first.
Well, let me argue this.
So just to finish my point, the question for, if I'm running a business and I start to see some traction, and now I want to figure out how can I get to the next step, the question becomes, where are my next customers coming from? Where am I going to find my people? Do they look like the people I have now? Can I do what I've done before? And is that going to bring the next person to me? Is that going to bring the next group to me? Or do I have to think about something differently? An important thing that I've seen happen over and over and over. Companies will start, everybody who builds something new begins by saying, here's what I've done, right? We're all like kids when we do this kind of thing. We create something and then you want to show people, look what I made, look at what I made. Isn't it beautiful? I just spent 3 years on this. Let me tell you how it works. And you expect that people are going to be like your mom, oh, show me your thing. Oh, I really want to hear all about it. Because you just spent 3 years doing this thing. And it works, it's amazing. And you want to show people. And in the beginning, the first people you get want to hear that message. Because they're interested for the same reason you are. They're like, yes, show me how it works. I want to hear all about your thing. And you're like, this is brilliant. I made this thing, and I told people how it works, and they care, and they want to buy it. And then you go and take that message and make it bigger, except the next group of people don't care how it works. They don't give a damn how it works. This thing, I don't know how this thing works. I don't have the first idea. So I know it's Bluetooth. That's just a word to me. I don't understand. I have a physics background. I mean, I'm a pretty bright guy. I don't know what Bluetooth is. I don't know how it works. I know that I can advance slides by pressing that button. And that's why I like this thing. How it works for the vast majority of people we want to sell to is not the message. So the answer to the question, how do I scale, is who am I selling this thing to? Who am I offering it to? And how does that person think about her problem? Not how does my thing work, but how does she think about her problem? Forget about my thing. Who am I offering this to? How does she think about her problem? What's she doing about that now? Because we're all doing something. Nobody's out there doing nothing about the thing you have. Whatever you have to offer, somebody's already doing something now, guaranteed, because we're all doing something. And they don't want to hear from you. They don't want to hear your message because they're busy. They've got kids to pick up. They've got an interview this week. There's maybe going to be a recession. We're having this terrible inflation. I have to buy gas. Where am I going to find $70 to put gas in my car? I mean, everybody's got problems. And now you're here to tell them about how your thing works. They're not going to listen to you, just like none of us could repeat any message we heard in the last day. What you have to do is figure out, who am I selling to? How does she think about her problem in this specific arena? And the way you scale it up is you find the people who are in pain. You find the people who are awake at 3 in the morning thinking about this thing, because there's some of them, no matter what you have to offer, somebody is awake thinking about a thing, and then you have to make your thing look like the answer to her question, okay? If you understand her question, and you understand the way she thinks about it, you can make your thing look like the answer to the question she's already asking you. Now she cares what you have to say because you are right there. She's awake at 3 in the morning thinking about it, and here you are with the answer. I'm going to tell you how to advance that slide, and you don't have to go anywhere near the machine. Sit across the room and hit the button. Really? That's exactly what I need. Thank you. I don't know how it works. Make yourself look like the answer to that person's question. And that's how you can attract enough interest, and scale and delivery becomes so important, because one problem you run into is now you create all this demand, and now you have to satisfy that when becoming replicable and systems and process and how all that comes into play. But if you don't have that demand, to your point earlier, Krista, the companies that take in money but don't have the demand, they're out of business.
So I think you absolutely, I totally agree. I mean, you have to, where's someone's pain point, and how can you help someone? I mean, if you want to pitch something to someone, you have to be, really solving a problem, do something that they really need and want. And ideally, if they have a real pain point at this moment, how to make a payment, and you come here and say, I can solve your problem. Ooh, that's great. Don't try to sell. It's much more difficult to sell something to someone that we have to create a new need.
Yeah, and that's totally, like, I can relate with so many incidences that work like that. So as Jeff said, companies don't make decisions. So in our business, we do payments. So if I just say how cool my thing is, and it makes in 1 second payment, nobody cares. Most deals were closed by people who are using some process that is just troublesome for them. So in our business, it's called the Treasury Department. They have accounting people who post payments. That's the most pain point they have. So if you just tell them, okay, this system is going to take all that away, you come in the morning and everything is fine. And then they are the one who lobby for you or your product within their organization to get things done. It's just getting to the right people, and I think just reconfiguring your message. It's nothing wrong in telling about your product, but telling the way that addresses the problem rather than showcasing your cool factor.
That is really cool. I think the next question we had, they all have already answered it, like what can go wrong with scaling up? Because I read data that almost 70% companies fail in scaling up for various reasons, and we just heard many big reasons why that could happen. I think having a proper process for even that would make a lot of sense. So with that, I'm just going to open it up to the audience if you have questions. Yeah, please.
Well, thank you all for coming to speak today. And my question, I know Nirmali mentioned earlier, is what to do and what not to do. You guys have been with many companies, and then you've consulted many companies, and Nirmali, you've been there for the journey with your company, and then Krista, you've got to know companies internationally as well. So what are some key takeaways for what not to do? What are some learnings that you've seen that, okay, this was, whether not just a key takeaway, but also a key takeaway that's more generally applicable to other instances. Okay, only people do this, or that's something you think a lot of budding entrepreneurs should really pay attention to. Thank you.
Can you remind us what's your business again?
Yeah, so I'm in the very early stage of ideation for wellness and hospitality.
Wellness and hospitality. And so you're talking about wellness within the for guests or for employees in hospitality?
More for guests, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So my thought on what not to do. One simple thought is don't forget why you got into this to begin with. If there's one thing that most entrepreneurs miss, I always get back to getting people's attention, just getting someone to pay attention to your message long enough for you If you can get them to listen, then you win, right? Because your thing is great. I don't know anything about your specific thing. I will say, having worked with literally hundreds of companies, because I worked with a lot before I started doing it just this way. The biggest challenge is just getting somebody to listen. Everybody's got a great answer once you sit them down. It's getting them to pause and listen. The place where entrepreneurs fail too often is that message. The thing that's going to break through is not about how your thing works or what it does. It's about, why am I doing this? Especially in the wellness space, the companies that do best are those that have some mission at the core. If you can answer a question with, this isn't right, it's not right that this exists. So one of the companies I helped put on the map was a thing called, it's now called Beacon Health Options. Beacon Health Options is now the #1 provider of behavioral health services across the U.S. Actually, it was founded by Governor Romney's chief of staff and some of his people. Yeah. So I got involved with them when they were 6 people. You may know some of these people. Anyway, their fundamental idea was, the problem was, too often there are comorbidities. People who have behavioral health problems also have other problems. So say I'm diabetic and I'm also depressed, and I go to my healthcare practitioner to get insulin, and I get a prescription for insulin, but they don't notice I'm depressed, and so I don't take it and I crash and I end up in the emergency room. That costs $10,000 every time that happens. It's ridiculous, and it doesn't cost me $10,000 because I don't have that much money, right? I'm on the street. It costs the state $10,000, or it costs that hospital somebody's paying that money. This is not right. So what Tim Murphy did, I don't know if you know Tim, anyway, he said what we need are graduated levels of care so we can match people up with the care they need, and we should have healthcare practitioners in the spaces where, in these clinics, where people are going for these rapid services, so that if there's clearly something wrong, if there's substance abuse, or there's severe depression, or all kinds of other behavioral health disorders around it, if they can be diagnosed at the same time that the physiologic problem is diagnosed, they can be treated at the same time, and they can match the people with the level of care they need. The model works so well, it's now the #1 model across the US, and it's solving problems for all these people. But it began with this reason why. This isn't right. There's gotta be a better way. And when you have an answer to that question, whatever your thing is, there's a reason why you created it. Find the people who share that value, who share that passion. It's not right. There's got to be a better way. Yes, there is, and I have it. Let me tell you how this works. If you talk about it that way and you put the why up front, Simon Sinek talks about this, and start with why if you want a good book on the subject. Or you can call me. Talk about the reason why you're doing this, and you'll attract people who have the same value. And they will be your core customers, and they will be your best advocates moving forward, because you're going to help them solve the problem. They're the ones who are going to tell everybody else about it. So don't lose track. Don't lose sight of the reason why you're doing this. That's the main thing I would say.
But to your earlier point
Yeah.
about, a lot of you are single practitioners in a very specific wellness niche, which is great. But to your point that people are probably not at CSC, and that's probably the case. But one way of thinking about it is, don't wait for people to come to you. Go where the people are. And we do this a lot with our international entrepreneurs. I mean, they say, can you recruit an audience that come, get a hotel room, and then the investors will come and you pitch them. Well, forget it. It's a lost strategy. Go to where there is already a crowd. If you come to Venture Cafe on a Thursday. So it's not totally out of the question for you guys to, try it out. You can have for $400 a month, have a space here. And you can then you have an audience of 2,000 people in a room. And if you have a product, you can try it out and say, perhaps you are, offering certain services. You do some research if you can try it out. But it's always easier when I think if you go to someone where there is already, an audience, a built-in audience, so there's a crowd as opposed to sit at home and wait till people call you.
Yeah, and I think and we were chatting about this earlier. One of the things about specifically around wellness industries, it's always considered the thing you do when you're really stressed, or the thing you do after work or before work. So to Krista's point, meet the customer where they are. So always be open for ideas that allow you to make it part of their lifestyle. So I think one of the things that we were discussing was, these days we're going to hybrid work mode, and a lot of companies actually want to do, like, the employees don't have burnout. Like, we had specific days off during COVID, like, even without any one Friday off, and companies are trying to do, they're investing in. But the way you think is, from their perspective, they don't know to go to a yoga studio or organize a session or something. Maybe you can do that part. Maybe you can figure out, think from a company's perspective, what are the logistical challenges to execute or to have your services as part of their workday or as part of their normal routine. So it doesn't become like a after work thing or the thing you do when you're really stressed. So think out of the box. The great thing about this industry is you guys are doing really good. So you never feel that car sales smell like, yeah, I'm just gonna close this deal and go home and feel really bad about it and conscious. Whatever you do, you're really doing well. But I think if you can just make it easier for your customer to avail those services, I think that will go a long way.
And to combine, I don't know exactly what you all, your businesses are, but we hear a lot about nutrition and wellness, and it's astounding how many people are obese and how many people, a lot of the businesses I deal with have solutions for people that are diabetic, which is a very sad statement because there's so many more diabetics here than there are many places in Europe. So when I have lunch buffets, when we have like today we had 25 people. When I had the U.S. audience there, and then we had Spanish audience there, and we had the vegetables, and we had grilled chicken, and then we had cookies. None of the Spanish ate cookies, but all the Americans ate cookies. So I think there's a lot of education that I think we can do and combine it with wellness. And if you talk to your friends, how many people are on a diet? Every other person I know is somehow on a diet, and they all fail because they're all, there's non-compliance everywhere. So if you make dieting somehow fun and reasonable and combine it with wellness, maybe we have an interesting combination.
Well, thank you so much. I think that's the time we have, but we have few more minutes or maybe 15 minutes for mingling around. So before we finish, I'm just gonna turn this audience to the slide we have. Okay. So thanks again for sharing your wisdom, Jeff, Nirmal, Krista. Thank you everyone for coming. I think for us being in the wellness space, we have an opportunity to solve really big problems. What is the point of life at the end, right? Whatever it is that we're doing, it's happiness. And wellness is probably the closest that comes to it. So feel proud about it that you're in this space. And of course, there are a lot of things that you can do better or learn more. And we have so many mentors here. And we also have a big pool of mentors at the Wellness Business Network. So connect with us. I lost my slide again. So something with this setup here. But anyway, let me just put it back up. So next month, we have the Wellness Business Summit on June 23rd. It's going to be on this floor, including the WNCAP area and this room. And we have some really, really awesome speakers coming up. We will have product demos and we'll have panel discussions. There's one great spiritual leader who's also probably one of the biggest wellness entrepreneurs called Sri Ravi Shankar. He's coming from India. He has 300 million of following all around the world. And so he will be here for the first time. And I'm really excited about that. So please come, please sign up. There will be some goodies if you sign up in advance. So we look forward to seeing you all here. And with that, thank you so much. We have some snacks, juices, water. Please feel free to see you again. Thank you so much. All right.
Shri coming out here? That's amazing.